Hi there guys, welcome back to SitRep Gaming. In today's video we're going to be discussing Call of Duty map remakes, and most importantly, are they a worthwhile thing to have in the game, and will we be seeing map remakes in Call of Duty World War II? Now the gameplay that you're seeing is from Infinite Warfare. It's a TDM on the map XS, which as many of you know is a remake of the classic Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 map Rust. I end up going quite big on this map and securing a comfortable victory for the team, so another good gameplay. But anyway, let's get straight into the topic of conversation for today's video. So, map remakes. Map remakes have become something of a staple in DLC packs for Call of Duty over the last couple of years. The current format seems to be that during the DLC season for each Call of Duty we have 4 individual packs, each comprising of 4 maps, so 16 maps in total. At the moment, one of each of the 4 maps in each pack is a Call of Duty remaster. That is to say, it's a remake of what's generally considered to be a fan favourite or really nostalgia heavy Call of Duty map. So over the course of 16 maps for each game, we receive 4 remakes, which is 25%. So when you look at it that way, quite a high percentage of the new maps we're getting are remakes. Now the first question to ask is, why do we have map remakes? Now that might sound like quite an inane question, but actually it's an important one to answer, because I can't help but feel that quite often the presence of map remakes is primarily a marketing tool to try and increase the sales unit of each DLC pack. Let me put it like this. If you're an old Call of Duty gamer and you've been playing the game for 7, 8, 9 years, or perhaps since Call of Duty first came out, you're going to have played a lot of maps and have a lot of fond memories from Call of Duties gone by. Now let's say you're playing the most recent Call of Duty and there's a forthcoming DLC pack. You learn that in that DLC pack there's going to be a remake of what was one of your favourite Call of Duty maps from years gone by. I'd be willing to bet that you're more likely to now buy that DLC pack based on the presence of that map remake in the pack. Now you might think, well, what's the harm in that? We're still getting 4 maps in each DLC pack, so we're still getting plenty of new content, and to a certain degree that's a fair thing to say. But I personally feel that DLC map remakes do not work, and they're not a worthwhile addition to Call of Duty. Now I say that for several reasons, which I'll go on to explain now, but the first reason is that we've learned a lot about the way that maps play and function over the years of Call of Duty. The developers have learned how to effectively incorporate the spawns in maps, what makes maps flow in different ways, how do we organise flanking routes and the size of the map, all these different mechanics. A lot of information has been gathered, a lot of knowledge has been processed, and it feels like we've reached a point where Call of Duty developers are now much more adept at producing maps which consistently produce the type of results we want to see. Now the problem is when you take a Call of Duty map which is perhaps 5 or 6 years and transplant it into the most recent Call of Duty, is suddenly you're taking a map which was made without the knowledge that we have in present day map design, and they tend to stick out like a sore thumb. And an example I'll use is the Terminal remake, which was included as a pre-order bonus for Infinite Warfare. Now Terminal, similarly to the XS map remake of Rust, was originally a map in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, so it's many years old now. And in that time, as I've already said, a lot has been learnt about how Call of Duty maps operate. Now, when I first played Terminal in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, it was the first time that I'd played the map since I played Modern Warfare 2, and I haven't played Modern Warfare 2 in a very, very long time. And what instantly stood out at me when I played this map for the first time in Infinite Warfare was that the spawns are terrible. The map flow is terrible. And the reason that stood out to me was they're now being put against the vanilla maps that we have in Call of Duty games, and they simply don't live up to the same standards. And quite frankly, I don't have as enjoyable a gameplay experience playing the remakes as I do playing the original maps included in each new Call of Duty. Now, the other reason why they never really ever play the same is because the individual mechanics of games change. And the most predominant way that recent Call of Duties have been affected by this change is through the addition of the advanced movement system. So, taking the excess gameplay that you're seeing at the moment, it plays so differently than the original Call of Duty Rust map did. And that's predominantly because now we're playing the map with advanced movement. We can boost from one side to the map and get there 10 times quicker than we could in the original map. Suddenly the large structure in the central area of the map can be climbed infinitely quicker than it ever could be in the original Call of Duty version of this map. So I'm playing the map and I'm thinking, okay, it excited me at first, but it simply doesn't play the same way. And that ends up replacing that sense of nostalgia which drew you into the map in the first place with a sense of kind of, I don't want to say disappointment, but you get tired of it very quickly. And actually what tends to happen is players then gravitate towards the other 3 new maps which are included in the pack. They have their fill of the nostalgia, they realise that it's nothing more than a little bit of nostalgia and the map actually doesn't play the same, it's not as much fun as it was, it's simply not the way they remember it, and they move on to the new produce. Now, I think this is a big problem, mostly because the cost of the DLC map packs is not cheap. For instance, at the beginning of Infinite Warfare, I paid £40 for my season pass. Now, I imagine this equates to roughly $70 in the US. And that's a substantial financial outlay for the 16 maps that you're going to be getting throughout the DLC season. And I think when you're paying that much money, it's slightly unfair that you're not getting entirely fresh new content for all of that investment. I'd like to think if I'm coughing up that much money, that I'm not going to be having 25% of the maps I receive encompassed by map remakes which, whilst having a nice kick of nostalgia for 5 minutes, simply don't play as well because we've moved on from how maps were designed. We've learnt so much and the maps end up sticking out like sore thumbs in terms of map flow, of how the spawns work, and generally how they stand up to the original maps that we're given in the DLC packs. Now, the question I have is, given all this, are we going to see map remakes in DLC packs for Call of Duty World War II? Now, the answer that I would give to that question is, if I was making an educated guess, then we're not going to be seeing map remakes, and that's for one very simple reason. And that is that Sledgehammer Games have hammered home the point that they want Call of Duty World War II to be, shall we say, a very true and respectful, aesthetically designed game to the original World War II games that we played years ago. They want it to feel real. They want the game to have a sense of, yeah, I'm really here. I feel like I'm in a place where fights really happened. And we know that from the footage which has emerged of Call of Duty World War II over the previous games and the information Michael Condrey has given us, that a lot of the maps take place in areas that really we actually had World War II battles in. You can go on the internet, you can read about these places. So the real sense of historical accuracy to the maps in Call of Duty World War II, or at least at this point in time it seems like there's going to be. Now, when it comes to the DLC being released for Call of Duty World War II, if map remakes are suddenly thrown into the mixture, then that will massively dilute the credibility and historical accuracy of the existing maps in Call of Duty World War II. And I personally feel that it would have a really detrimental effect on the way that the game plays and the immersion that we get when we play the maps in Call of Duty World War II. Now, of course, there's the other slightly technical issue, which is that Sledgehammer Games have only actually produced independently one other Call of Duty, which was Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I can hardly imagine a Call of Duty Advanced Warfare map being remade for Call of Duty World War II and it maintaining any kind of degree of historical accuracy. And considering as well that one game is advanced movement and one game is boots on the ground, the mechanical issues of how the map plays would just be so difficult to try and translate that it in my eyes, it would be an incredibly difficult undertaking. So I simply don't see how we can have map remakes in Call of Duty World War II if we want to maintain the historical credibility which Sledgehammer Games seem to be keen on maintaining throughout the game. So I think, in retrospect, that would actually be a really positive step, because by hook or by crook, it means that we would end up in a situation where if we continue the current format of 16 DLC maps throughout the DLC season for Call of Duty World War II, we'd be getting 16 entirely fresh maps. Okay, we might miss out on that slight nostalgia kick, but that kick only ever lasts for a few minutes, and that kick very quickly gives way to a sense of frustration that the maps, we've moved on. We've learned a lot more about how maps should be designed, and I personally think that the maps that we get in DLC should be embracing all the new understandings of map design, and that it should be entirely fresh content to help keep the game feel fresher and more exciting for longer. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please leave a like because it's greatly appreciated. If you'd like to see more content from SitRep Gaming, please hit that subscribe button and make sure that you turn on the notifications as well so that you never miss another video from SitRep Gaming. All that's left to say is thanks for tuning into the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.